Welcome to the Heartland Journal podcast with Steve Abramowitz, editor-in-chief of heartlandjournal.com.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to the show. I'm Steve Abramowitz. Remember me? And this is the Heartland Journal podcast. Remember us? If you like what you hear, please subscribe and pass it around, and subscribe again and pass around some more, and we can grow. That's how we do it. And thank you for doing it. On this show, we are focusing on our nation today with always an interesting person making a positive change in our community, where I interview people who are making an impact and are lovers of truth. Today, we are talking with special guest Martha Byrne. The Emmy Award-winning soap opera star and wife of an NYPD hero turned PI, Martha Byrne goes to war against the FBI and DOJ to save her family and clear her husband's name. The FBI knocked on the door one morning before dawn. It was a knock that forever changed the lives of those on the other side of it. The life of three-time Emmy Award-winning actress Martha Byrne was turned upside down on October 28, 2020, with a pre-dawn raid at her home by the FBI. They were there to arrest her husband, highly decorated NYPD hero turned private investigator Michael McMahon. In the fight to clear her husband's name, Martha uncovered a coordinated effort by the FBI, DOJ, and the Chinese Communist Party that led all the way up to the White House. Her new book, In the Interest of Justice, tells the story of the living nightmare for Martha and her family, thanks to three world government tactics that are right out of a communist dictator's playbook. Now she's here for the second time to update us on their war and her life as the world turns. Almost two turns since she's been here last. Hello, how are you today, movie star?
Oh, wow. Movie star. That's a very nice compliment. I'm here. That's always a good sign when you wake up and start your day in a beautiful, sunny New Jersey morning. And so thank you for having me.
Oh, I thought you were in New York. I wore my New York stuff for you.
Close enough.
Close enough. Okay.
I consider myself a New York. I was raised in New York. I mean, when I was on Broadway in Annie in 1980, I feel like I really was on the streets and learned a lot about what New York is all about through just watching the world. So it really did. Someone said to me once, like, I'm so glad we got to be raised in New York City and like get the gritty and understanding of kind of what the craziness of life. And I agree with him 100%. I love New York.
It's a hard knock life. Isn't that what she said?
You better believe it.
Yeah, we learned that, didn't we? So has this drama and trauma made you want to leave the state? Well, New Jersey is close enough when Michael gets out.
I tell you, my husband was a police officer, an NYPD sergeant in the early 90s. So when we first got married, I mean, it was incredibly crazy and dangerous where he was working in the Bronx, and I got better. I watched New York City from the 80s turn into a safe, extremely safe city where I felt very comfortable wearing my jewelry, and I didn't feel like I had to look over my shoulder, and now I feel that it's kind of gone back to that, which gives me hope in a sense that if you have the right leadership, it can change in a minute. New York's always going to survive, right? New York is New York, but it's definitely changed. It's different, because when I was in Annie in 1980s, that it was very separate as far as like the crime, things that were going on. In Annie, we were Annie kids running all over the city together, and we never had a problem. Like we never felt like anybody was going to be out to harm us or anything. And it feels much darker as far as what's going on.
You can't even go into Times Square without getting beat up by Elmo and the Cookie Monster nowadays.
Well, Elmo alone, you should just stay away from that guy. That outfit is.
He's got issues.
A little sketchy.
He's got some hate issues going on, maybe because they cut the funding. Well, has your faith in American justice been shattered through this?
I have to say that when my faith in the American justice system has never been. It was extremely strong when I first got married to my husband, and I saw that how he was cleaning up the streets of New York and how it was all. Somebody's here cutting the lawn, of course. How it was turned around, that you saw justice, you saw bad guys getting off the street, and how us as an American culture was all about getting the bad guys to be taken off the streets. And now when I went through this with my husband in the federal system, it seemed to be completely different from what I had experienced my entire life with my husband and his other coworkers in the NYPD or even federal agents that we knew, like that, and how it had changed. And my husband, when he became a private investigator after he had a severe car accident on the job at the NYPD, he was working for U.S. attorneys. I'm sorry, not U.S. attorneys, but for defense attorneys, often doing federal cases with the U.S. attorney's offices, et cetera. And even then it seemed better, and I don't know what happened since that time, but there seemed to be far more nefarious behavior going on behind the scenes, and they were getting away with it. And I didn't, unless I saw it firsthand, I wouldn't believe how corrupt and how the win at all costs was far more important than justice.
Mhm.
And I saw evidence suppressed. I saw evidence manufactured in my husband's case. I saw what's called Brady material, which is exculpatory material kept from us for years. And then I wondered what else was there that they weren't showing us. We had encrypted discovery. We would get a batch of discovery for us to read after 8 months of waiting for it. And it was encrypted, so we couldn't open it. So we really haven't even seen a lot of our own discovery because we asked the government if they could help us, open it, and they said no. So here you are right now going, okay, now it's going to have to get an IT specialist to come in, and that was extremely expensive to do that. So we do what we could, and even with that, we saw things in our discovery that we thought, how could they have gotten search warrants? How could they have spied on us? And very disturbing. I mean,
Yeah, very disturbing.
I've
I always call it the rise of the prosecuting attorney because it used to be equal. Defense and prosecutors would be congenial and they would share all this information. And then all of a sudden, the rise of the prosecutor, because guess what? Those are the ones that decided to run for office and become politicians post Rudy Giuliani. And now the scales are tipped. And so it's all about winning at all costs, like you just said, which is terrible. So Michael is a hero cop. It's
yes,
in the books. It's all we know about this from last episode you were on. The kind they make movies about, really.
yes.
Has his faith in the system been broken too? Not only the courts and the prosecutors, but the police department, his brothers in arms, the unions, anything.
I think one of the biggest things that he has said to me is that he feels the justice system he's really lost complete faith in the justice system. And for
Sad.
him to
Very
say
sad.
that is really, it hits it in a different way,
Right.
because he's sacrificed everything, his life, his put his life on the line every day. He's a 9/11 first responder. He had 78 medals when he was on the NYPD, and he held himself to a certain standard that when he saw how these FBI agents behaved and the federal prosecutors behaved, now we understood why 99% of people got indicted and they won 99% of their cases. I mean, those are some odds,
Yeah. It's really
and God
like
forbid you fight
Superman
back.
saying, I believe in truth, justice, just not that American way part. I mean, it really
Oh,
is
yeah.
like that for him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's his heart is broken.
Oh,
His spirit is broken. He has faith in the people who have come forward to help him who didn't have to. So that gives you hope because you realize there are people out there who do the right thing just because it's the right thing to do.
yeah.
Like us, that's kind of how we were wired as human beings and how we kind of given back to society in many, many levels. So that's giving him hope. When he hears people like James Comer and their oversight committee did a 300-page report on the CCP, and they mentioned Mike's case as being one of weaponization, and it appears that he never should have been even arrested or prosecuted or investigated.
Right.
That gives you hope, right? Okay, that's a lot of congressmen. That's 45 of them are signed on to that document and seen it. So that gives you hope. And it's a million little miracles here and there. But he's sitting in a federal prison 600 miles away from our home, and he did nothing wrong.
Has
I
your
mean,
faith in God been shaken?
stronger, actually. My faith in God is stronger
Tell us.
than it was. And I am Michael's as well. I think when I had a very strong faith before this happened, I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school, but that was part of just my everyday. That was my normal. But until you go through something that all you have is to rely on your faith, it really tests your faith. So in the Catholic religion, it's about, these challenges are given to you as almost as gifts in a way that God feels that you're strong enough to handle this, and you have a responsibility to carry the cross for others, for yourself, to be a beacon of hope for others and get through it. And so you wake up every morning, and I do still, saying, okay, God, what do you want me to do? Basically, don't put me down the wrong path if it's not going to be fruitful for what you want me to do in this life. And Michael has found that as well. And he was not as faithful as me as far as his Catholic faith. He was raised Catholic, but he had a lot of loss in his life, and he felt like his faith was challenged. And what I would do when this happened, I said, just come to church, just come to mass, just sit in the pew for an hour, and he started coming with me every week. And then when I dropped him off at prison in 600 miles away in Michigan, I gave him rosary beads, and they were plastic rosary beads. And he said the guard wasn't going to let him keep them. And he said, I need those. He said, I need them. And I said to Mike, I said, do you realize where those rosary beads came from? He goes, no. I said, those are the rosary beads that were given to me when our first son was born in the hospital. Mm. And he said there was something about them that I was very connected to. So he's been really, we don't have communication that much. We only get a few minutes, a day to talk to each other on the phone. He's not allowed to have emails because he's a stalker. His charge is a violent charge, which is, again, I don't know how you could be put in prison for stalking when the alleged victims never saw you and couldn't identify you in court, had no police reports, had no description of the vehicle, never saw you. I mean, if that doesn't shake people to their core, that you can have a man who's a private investigator who was on a public street, who was never seen, and told the police department every day of surveillance that he was there, and he had someone with him every day. If they can put you in federal prison for that, they can put anybody in.
Yeah, especially if you're a licensed PI. I mean, you might as well put them all in there. That's what they do.
Well, that's the point. That's why, he's not fighting just for himself. I mean, this is for I made a very good point yesterday. I said, well, it's not just private investigators. It's like ICE agents or any law enforcement who are doing their job. It only takes one person to say, I accuse somebody of stalking.
Well, literally, the U.S. Marshals were established to track down fugitives. How are you supposed to track them down out front and overtly? You have to. It's just ridiculous. It's just completely upside down. Okay, I want to talk more about that.
Yep.
Since we have the confines of this show to get it all in.
Yes.
I know it's been about 15 years since you last appeared on As the World Turns, but I wanted to ask this. I had Antonio Sabato Jr. on the show, episode 306. He was on a soap too, General Hospital, from 92 to 95. That was on ABC. You were on CBS. They didn't like his outspoken politics. So when they did a reunion show, they recast his character and killed him off. Not very nice. They did it without him. Do you think CBS, based in New York City, also, so is they, but would be just like that these days to you because of your controversy, even though now we know it's not fair? Or are their executives more friendly in this cancel culture world we live in?
Well, it's a hypothetical because obviously The show's been off since 2010. But I will tell you that Kimberlyn Brown, who was on Bold and the Beautiful, ran for Congress in California as a Republican. She's on the Bold and the Beautiful. She's been on the show for how many years? 30 years or so.
Yeah.
And it was never been an issue at all. I mean, although CBS isn't technically her boss, the Bell family is, the Bell Philip Productions is, but that's never been an issue for her. Would I feel the same way? It's hard to tell. I think that I would hope not, but unfortunately, it's a hypothetical. I mean, I don't know if anybody on CBS has had this issue. I mean, there's actors who are very outspoken on many things and have never been, punished for that. So to say, punished. But it's also the culture's changing now too, which is a good thing. I think that we're getting more back to what it should be, which is entertainment, sort of. But I don't know. I mean, I would hope that I'd been there for so long, and I was a very outspoken. I mean, I came to work in a Catholic school uniform. I was an outspoken pro-life person. In my career before any political alignment I had in my life, which I really don't even have that right now. It's just that I happen to have found support within the Trump team and the Republican Party. I've had extremely overwhelming support from a lot of people in the party. So that's kind of where I went to listen to who was listening. I kind of see myself as a moderate person in general. So I don't think, I think if you're, maybe it's a corporate thing, maybe like Procter and Gamble, who owned our show. I just don't think Procter and Gamble would really think too much about it, to be honest with you, if it was still on today.
Yeah. Well, they used to support Ronald Reagan when he did it. But, Antonio, by the way, I don't know who that person is that you use as an example, but Antonio ran and lost for office in California too, but as a Republican. I don't know if she ran as a Democrat.
She was a Republican. Yeah.
She also was. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Well,
yes.
I guess there's the answer. Is they're meaner on the other network.
Or whatever. I think
you have
it's
any
owned by
thoughts of
different
running?
people.
Yes.
It depends on who your boss, it depends on who your boss is. If Bradley Bell, who owns The Bold and Beautiful, their family owns that show and licensed it to CBS, technically they're her boss. So in our situation, Procter and Gamble was our boss. CBS licensed the show. So CBS wouldn't necessarily have a say in that.
Yeah.
Right now. Isn't that interesting? Like it really depends on who is your boss and who pays your check.
Very much so. And
in
especially
ABC,
today versus back then. And As the World Turns ran for 54 years. So they must have made CBS billions in advertising.
Yes.
But the network in the last 10 years, decided to go so biased on one side, especially the newsroom, on the political spectrum, they went all in against Trump and Republicans in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really, I think we're going to look back at this time and go, how the heck did we get here? Where did it all begin? And I write in my book a lot about how the media never covered my husband's story properly to this day.
Exactly.
Not one story about his heroism, his career, that the guy he was following was a Wuhan official a CCP Wuhan official here in the country illegally.
I did get a lot of information from the New York Post, however. So Rupert Murdoch's organization that now wants to move into California, apparently they did follow you, but you're
yes,
right.
that was
not on the news.
Right. And it was Isabel Vincent wrote several stories in support of, Michael's case, which was the only one, and unless it was me speaking out, which again, I was happy to do, but I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe that you have a Wuhan official testifying in Mike's case and no one covered it. I mean, we just came out of we just came out of a pandemic about Wuhan and nobody covered that. Nobody covered his testimony. Nobody
says a lot, right? It says,
well, it was mind blowing. It was truly mind blowing about what he said. And I would look around thinking, why is this not? And we couldn't talk about it because, again, we're in the middle of a trial. My husband is, fighting for his life. So what is he going to do? Right? Is he going to say, we can't speak about that until it's over, technically, because you didn't want to. Because we weren't winning anything. We weren't getting any rulings. We weren't getting anything to help our case. So why would that, we don't want to push it anymore either.
Yeah, makes sense. So you were last here. I looked it up on Rumble Library on our channel, episode 162, December 20th, 2023, right before Christmas, almost 2 years ago. At the time, your husband was being harassed by the FBI, almost 10-year nightmare, resulting in him becoming the first private investigator convicted of spying for the People's Republic of China in the United States. We know that's BS. They apparently don't. How is he holding up?
Well, now that he's right outside the window.
Oh, he is?
No, the landscaper. I don't know if you're hearing that. They're cutting the grass today.
No, I can't hear it, but it happens a lot. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's like, it's so interesting about hearing the landscaper, like life goes on, right? Someone's coming to trim the grass and your life kind of goes on, but it's not, it's on hold. He's in a place he shouldn't be in. He is in a facility that's a low security facility. He should not be there. He is a 0 to 2 threat level, which is like nothing, basically. He should be close to home. He's not. He shouldn't be there at all.
Something about 500 miles, right? I heard something.
Yeah.
He's just outside the limit of where it could be.
Well, here's what happened is that someone wrote in their report that this facility was 498 miles from our home. So it was under the 500, but it's not. It's over 600 miles away. So someone wrote that in their report, which is false. And he also should not be at a low security prison with, the kind of perpetrators that are in there, which he's a police officer, retired, obviously, but, police officers in prisons don't necessarily do very well, as you know.
Yeah, especially if you put someone in there. What
And
what
also,
what,
if
what
you,
benefit
yeah.
would he have gotten if that person hadn't lied and said it was,
Oh, he would be 40 minutes from my house in what they call like a camp, which is, no bars, no nothing like that. It's more like an army barracks type of situation.
oh, so
But
it's
he'd
a
be,
complete different
oh,
but
completely different.
and
It's
how did they
very,
get away with that? It's not hard to tell the judge or somebody, hey, that number's off. Here's my odometer.
well, here's what happens is that you have to file the complaint. Then that complaint has to go through all the channels, has to be approved by all these other people. It's all the red tape that goes into that. By the time you rectify that situation, he's home. That's how long these things take.
Oh, because he got an 18-month sentence, he'll probably come home early. By the time that process of red tape was cut, it would be over and it would be moot.
Yeah, and this is more of a BOP problem. And they have a new head of the Bureau of Prisons now who said he's going to be addressing the First Step Act, which is what Donald Trump wants to really implement, which is if you can get home confinement, if you qualify, you should be in home confinement. I mean, my husband has never had a parking ticket in his life. He has nothing on his NYPD record, completely incredible. He's a hero. He absolutely qualified to get probation based on his 9/11 issues, his health issues. They punished him, and that's part of our future discussions. Right now, I just want to get him home.
Right, sure.
It's. I feel that he's not getting the health care that he needs. Again, as a 9/11 first responder, we have.
Was it a state crime or a federal crime?
It was a federal crime.
So why doesn't Trump pardon him like he did the Jan 6ers?
I think that there's a lot of things that go through that. It's not television. It's not like television where you'd say, okay, someone swoops in and takes care of it. I mean, there's a process to it, and there are people that have to sign off and read through the case. And remember, it's not just Mike in this case. There's other people. There's people who took plea deals who Mike had nothing to do with any of these people, nothing. Yeah. But it's a little bit more complicated. I do think that
Trump's a New Yorker. This is local news for him. He should have.
Well, he's also a back the blue guy. He's also a 9/11 supporter, first responder. I know that I really believe when he hears the details of this case, whenever he is prepped or briefed on it, he's going to be horrified. And I also feel like every day that goes by that he doesn't know about it, or if he does, I think that it has to be brought to his attention. And Congressman Michael Lawler, who's amazing, I mean, has been an absolute advocate and wrote a letter to President Trump regarding Mike and his support of Mike. So I know that he's getting a lot of positive support, but this is politics, and it has to be the right time for everyone. And he's the president of the United States.
Yeah.
And
everybody that listens to this show, please go to the whitehouse.gov website and send an email today and say,
thank you.
This is outrageous.
Thank you.
You wrote this book.
Yes.
In the interest of justice, one woman's fight against weaponized Justice Department to save her husband.
Yes.
How did the Justice Department, that would be Biden and Trump 1 and 2 now, Justice Departments, by the way, how did they weaponize against him?
Well, if you go back to 2016, which we're learning a lot about now, about what was going on with the FBI, what they did to Donald Trump as soon as he came down the escalator. They were spying on him illegally. Carter Page, Michael Flynn, Kash Patel, Devin Nunes. If you put yourself in that frame of mind as far as what was going on completely behind the scenes with the three-letter agencies, then it makes sense as to where Mike fell into the first administration, when you have an FBI agent who decides to keep this case to themselves, and the Eastern District of New York, which is Brooklyn, who were doing this on their own back in 16 to 20. That puts it in perspective as far as like happening under Trump. People always say like, well, it happened under Trump's his investigation against him happened under Trump. I said, well, look what they were doing to Donald Trump during that first term. Okay. So that they were absolutely off the rails in that time. And we have a Obama appointed judge. All the prosecutors were appointed by either Biden or under Obama. You have a system that has kind of, again, gone to a much more political, underground, darker place where it's veiled. A lot of it is completely veiled. And I've learned that now since the last couple of months, since Trump got into office. I've spoken to several people who said I should have been involved in this case, and I was not. I was walled off from your husband's case. And that was shocking to me. That I knew it. Like, I felt like, how could all the FBI and this and that not know what's going on here? And they didn't, because they weren't told. So you have a small amount of people who have one agenda, and it's not the American people's agenda. It's a political agenda. Whether it's China, I pointed this out in my book, and I detail it in my book. If you read the book, I let people decide what the reason was. But leading up to the 2020 election, we're finding this out now too. Why are they arresting my husband a week before the 2020 election when it's about China, when all the actual players in this case had fled the country on the FBI's watch? There was, what did they get? They got a NYPD guy who had retired and did a couple days of work in 2016. Why would they have that? Why would they make this big press conference with Christopher Wray and John Demers and a lot of other players that you're going to start to hear more about in 2020, about the 2020 election?
They obviously had their eyes on it, and they didn't want anyone else to know what was going on. We'll get to that in a second. So the mother of three has transformed herself into an investigator, advocate, personal trainer, and even amateur psychiatrist for her husband's cause. I must say, you look great since the last time we saw you. Have you been working out? Are you a trainer now?
No, I'm training. I think that they're referring to training my husband.
Yeah, I know. It's from your book. Yeah.
I'm doing okay. I'm worried about my husband 24/7. So I'm trying to find ways to stay strong. I am going to be running the Tunnel to Towers, which I've done the last few years.
Oh, good.
In September. My brother-in-law, who passed away the day before Mike was sentenced, he was a lieutenant in the fire FDNY and Army Ranger, died of 9/11 illness. And my husband has 9/11 issues. So I'm going to be running that with our family, all of us. I hope Mike is with me. I'm praying that he's out in time to come be part of that.
And that's a good thing, because it takes, these Herculean tasks usually people don't take care of themselves. They break down or get sick, like, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So good for you for looking after yourself, because you're no good to him if you're worn out and you can't do it.
Yeah. Well, I said to him, I was talking to him on the phone. I said, when we're together, when you were here, I could motivate you to get up and go with me, whether to the gym or go for a walk or go for a run. But now that he's not here, it's not as easy for me to find the strength to do it. And
Right.
I
You're
also
training
have to know
him to get ready. Now you're training yourself to stay the course. I got it.
Exactly.
Yeah. But again, it's a marathon, so don't hurt yourself.
Yes, exactly.
McMahon denies he knowingly worked for the Chinese government and has long maintained he is a scapegoat used by the Department of Justice to score political points by making an example of him. So was he caught up in a war on private investigators in New York City by dirty politicians trying to destroy the fact finders to hide their crimes, like the entire industry of PI, or just him?
I think he was a perfect scapegoat for what they were trying to do, which was, if this is an optics case about China, because Donald Trump was always saying we're not hard enough on China, we're not doing enough on China, we're not doing enough on China. Joe Biden had his China issues, obviously, with his son, and his relationships with Chinese business, and millions of dollars. And the day Mike was arrested, 2 letters went out from the FBIAA, which is the FBI Association. I think they're active and retired agents. And 2 letters went out, one to Joe Biden's team and one to Trump's team, to encouraged both of them to keep Christopher Wray as the head of the FBI, depending on who gets in the next, who wins 2020.
Right.
And China was a big issue. Now, if you have an optics case where it said, look what we're doing. Look, we've arrested not even just Chinese people living here in the United States, but an American, a cop, it gets attention. And with Joe Biden,
I
what it
remember
does is,
leading up to the election, there was all that, I think 4 spies that were listening in somewhere in New Manhattan that ended up getting kicked. Was that the whole bad optics of China, or was that specifically the case he was on?
no, I mean, there was so many issues with China in the United States, and the Chinese police stations in New York, and academia and real estate. For all these things were going on in the United States that were not being addressed
Yeah.
by the proper people. I mean, I know more about Chinese crimes in this country than I'd ever needed to know. But I think he checked a lot of boxes because there were a lot of Chinese cases, one in particular with an NYPD active lieutenant that should have been really had all the boxes about a fox hunt case, and he was not arrested. But my husband, who's retired since 2003, he checks the NYPD box, the PI box to send a message to PIs that what we're
It's like the
doing.
French Connection, and he's
Yeah,
Popeye.
yeah,
Was it
it's bad.
just China dealings they were afraid of, or more like Elliot Spitzer type sex scandals and all the other stuff politicians usually get busted for in New York, like trying to, burn bag everything, and China was an excuse for his part.
I think China was the issue
China
because
was the issue.
I think so because you
Operation
have
Fox Hunt.
the yeah, well, because we have Hunter's laptop, which is riddled with Chinese issues. They were trying to cover up. 51 intelligence, allegedly intelligence officers signed off on it, saying it was Russian disinformation, which it wasn't. You had, there was a multi-scope plan that was put in place as soon as that laptop surfaced, and people thought I was crazy when it first happened. I'm telling you, within a week that Mike was arrested, I said he was arrested because of Hunter Biden's laptop, and people thought I was crazy.
Change the
But
subject. Change the subject.
yeah, exactly. But it wasn't just you had you had the 51 guys saying it was, and women that were saying it was Russian, But didn't you just hear what happened? That in Albany they found tens of thousands of ballots that had been obtained with Joe Biden being
Yeah,
checked off. That was
yeah.
Chinese.
And the
Okay.
U.S. Postal Service admitted that the guy with the whole truckload of them was telling the truth, that he actually was carrying them into Pennsylvania. But
Yes.
I mean, that's a huge story and we could talk about it all, but I
Yeah.
want kind of Chinese police stations in Lower Manhattan where officials allegedly often worked with local private investigators to nab Chinese nationals, usually on charges from the motherland. Not hard to believe they decided along the way to protect those same Chinese nationals instead of charge them. So what's
Hmm.
up with Chinese police stations anyway? Why do they have their own police stations in our country?
It's because the politicians, China invests a lot of money in our politicians, a lot of donations. I mean, we found out not just too long ago that even the subject my husband was following, the Wuhan official, had donated to Hillary Clinton in the fall of 2016, a wanted Chinese fugitive. He was involved in massive, massive EB5 frauds, which is um, this EB5, which is like a way that people get fast tracked to get visas in the United States. And
Yeah.
China is 84%. So what I'm saying is that the political element of this definitely was a factor. And they would say they are like help centers for people from China who are here to help them with their visa, but that wasn't true.
That's what an
So
embassy is supposed to do.
you're right, right. And if you have uh, how do you fix that, right? How do you fix that? And I've always said, like, why, if they had come to my husband and the other NYPD retired PIs that were with him in 2016, what would we have found out? Well, we would have found out that there was a massive amount of money laundering through real estate that was going on that Mike found just by his case. This very simple case showed a pattern of Chinese officials owning real estate in this country.
Bingo.
So, it's a huge problem. But when people are getting rich politicians, they don't want it to be exposed because it's a machine that's been working
And
for
let's
very
not
long.
forget, that's almost a decade ago, and nobody's been stopping it because Mike's been all wrapped up in this. So there you have it. It went on. They got him out of the way. Retired FBI agent Kevin Hecht, one of the foremost experts on China counterintelligence, who began investigating Operation Fox Hunt in 2016, same time, called it an example of malicious prosecution on the part of the DOJ. Sounds just like January 6th. So somewhere along the way, it went from a New York case to a federal DC swamp cover-up. Any idea what or who went to DC that wanted that done?
Well, one of the biggest questions I get from people who work in the government, that are good people, they're like, how did Mike get charged with interstate stalking when he did a case in New Jersey? He never left New Jersey. The subjects live in New Jersey. How does he get charged with interstate stalking?
It's like that
Why?
movie Copland. Yeah.
But, right. Okay. So now but it goes to the Eastern District of New York prosecutor's office. Why is that? Why didn't it go to the New Jersey prosecutor's office? Okay. So you realize that there's representatives from DC who work in these offices, and you have someone like, his name is Scott Claffey, who worked in Chinese, or intelligence, you kind of in his space, okay, in the EDNY, but he's really a direct link to DC and that side of it, okay. They did not include the New York FBI people in this case, the Fox Hunt people. Why would they do that? Why would they not include, let's say you said a Kevin Hecht, for instance, let's use him as an example. Why wouldn't they include someone like him in this investigation? Why do they bypass him? Again, this is a multi-layered kind of issue. And Scott Claffey, who was with the Department of Justice for 11 years, just left right after Mike was sentenced. Like 2 days later, he was gone.
Job done.
Well, or maybe it appears he may have been let go. The lead prosecutor, Craig Heron, left in September of 2024, right before the election was coming on. So a lot of people left, and there was a lot of dirty business that was going on that all came out at our trial, but nobody reported on it. So, when you have people doing, like I said, under a veil, and not including good agents who have integrity,
or journalists with integrity, because if a tree falls in the woods, nobody hears it. Yeah,
exactly.
Well, here's one for you. Bo Dietl. He worked with a Chinese security firm and conducted surveillance on a Chinese billionaire couple, Zhu and Liu, a former Wuhan official, you alluded to this, who had fled China amid allegations of corruption. Wuhan, as in COVID, gain-of-function research. Any idea if this has to do with Fauci and Collins and their cover-up of COVID, wrapping Mike into it?
Well, let's put it this way. I'm no brain surgeon, and I don't stand to be here and say, but I can see the obvious things, which is you have a former Wuhan official from CCP, high-ranking guy who was in charge of the buildings, in charge of, that's what he did. Like, if you look him up, if anybody actually did any research, they would have found that out. And he fled here, not as a dissident, but being charged with, embezzlement and taking bribes. This is not a dissident, okay? So what else was going on? What else was happening? And as far as what Bo Dietl did, his surveillance on certain people, whether it was a crime or not, if that's not a crime, then neither Mike never being seen or never, why is that a crime and not the other? See my point?
Right.
Like
they were both using the same investigative tactics. Michael's in jail. Bo is hanging out at Mar-a-Lago, which is why I don't understand why he doesn't, or RFK Jr. don't tell Trump to pardon Mike and just bring him home tomorrow.
I would really hope that. I've learned a lot in the last 4.5 years. People protect themselves first a lot of the time. And going out on a limb for somebody is heroic, first of all, but if it's super heroic if you've been involved in something similar and you don't want to draw attention to it. And, it would be the right thing to do, in my opinion, about, I was in Bo Dietl's office right after Mike's arrest. I spoke to him, and he didn't seem to want to help. That's on him. That's his decision.
Yeah.
It's just very disappointing that happened. Because surveillance is surveillance, that meaning the PI industry is the PI industry. So I'm not sure what the other cases were. There were many, many cases. And for instance, in the Southern District of New York, there was a case where there were multiple PIs who were knocking on people's doors, for Chinese, to go after these Chinese people that had apparently fled here, and the CCP wanted to pressure them to go back. And they were not arrested. They were warned. They were told by the New York field office that you had been targeted, and they went, "Oh my gosh, we had no idea." And they went on their merry way, and they were never charged. And Mike did nothing. He did nothing, and he's sitting in prison. So there's a total imbalance of what's gone on here. But by the way, let's say the judge who said this several times, well, you can deal with that on appeal. You'll deal with that on appeal. Why should it cost my family our savings, our safety, the people's opinions? The world thinks you're a spy. He's in jail, prison. Why should we have to wait until his appeal to rectify the situation and exonerate him?
That, and you and your family have practically exhausted your savings on legal fees. Is anyone in the new Trump administration, even below Don himself, looking at this? Pam Bondi,
Oh, yes.
Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, maybe they get him out early and not the full 18 months.
We're working on that. It's a constant battle every single day. I wake
You've been
up
there
every
7
day.
months now.
Yeah, I mean, it is going to be. I'm learning again. There should he be a priority? I believe so, but he's my husband. He's the father of my children. He's a hero. He's a representative of all the good that is in this country and
They just
in this
moved a
world.
monster, Ghislaine Maxwell, from high security whatever to somewhere in Texas.
I know. I know.
Overnight, boom, like that.
Overnight. It can be done that fast if someone wants to do it.
Yeah, we got to find that person for you.
We do. We really do. I think the new head of the BOP, again, he just came out saying in the end of May, he said, I really want to implement Trump's First Step Act, which is, again,
I was told they're working on a second step. So it'd be nice if the first one would work on you and then the second one for other people. But yeah.
And we would help with that. I mean, I think there's a lot of growth that needs to happen, but you're putting my husband in a situation where he should not be.
Police aren't supposed to be in general population. That's just not the way it's supposed to work. I've seen enough movies to know that. I always like to quote good reviews to authors, not the bad ones, and there are none for you, but and get their reaction. You're an author now, so Teresa said 5 stars. So congratulations first off for that.
Yeah.
Writing a book is hard, so 5 stars is huge, folks. Important and timely must read. What would you do if the person at the very center of your life, the one you know better and trust more than anyone, became the target of an FBI investigation, complete with a horrifying pre-dawn arrest for simply doing his job? Thus begins Martha Byrne's jaw-dropping true story. As she works to clear her husband Michael's name, Martha unravels unimaginable corruption to get to the root of the nightmare in which they're living. Interwoven throughout is a story of abiding love, deep faith, and the perseverance of the human spirit. What would you say to Teresa if you could about your book?
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, you put yourself, you're as raw as you could possibly be on the page, and you're always wondering if it's going to translate to the reader. Because I'm just telling you the truth, and I'm just telling you what we went through. And for someone to take that away and get it, to feel it, it's different than acting. You act in a scene and the audience responds, but you're playing a different person.
Yeah.
But it's still real. You're still feeling all the feelings, but you're playing a role. But when you're writing about your own life and you're not holding anything back, it's not scary for me because I just felt it was an important story to tell. It makes you feel like I did the right thing. It was the right thing to do to get the story out there for people to understand what can happen in this world and hopefully have some faith.
All the world's a stage. We just hope it has a happy ending, right?
Yes.
So one more 5-star. Allison G.
Okay.
Required reading for every American. What moved me even more profoundly was the McMahon family's steadfast Catholic faith, their relationship with the Blessed Mother, and their unwavering trust in God mirrors my own. Every day I pray the rosary, and every day I offer one of my intentions specifically for Michael McMahon, that he receives a presidential pardon before his scheduled surrender to the Bureau of Prisons. I also pray for the peace, safety, and strength of his family. The McMahons, like so many others, have been crushed by a government that seems determined to destroy them, not serve them. Martha's words, rooted in both justice and faith, are a testament to why we must keep fighting evil in all its forms. That
Hmm.
is not your typical book review. What do you say to
No.
Allison?
Wow, Allison. I mean, that was the faith part of it is so important. You know, the rosary is your best weapon against the devil. I mean, that's kind of what like, the devil doesn't like the Blessed Mother because she is a woman, powerful, and the mother of God in our religion. You know, that's she is all powerful and protection. And if you ask for her protection, she will provide that. And all you have to do is ask for her protection, and she will provide that. So the rosary becomes a big part of that, enhancing that strength and protection. So for Allison to recognize that, and I had a blessing, I had a visitation from the Blessed Mother right before Mike was arrested, and I
Mm,
go into detail in the book about what happened and how powerful it was, and how it changed me forever. Uh, so for that part of it to come out, and I always felt like people should read the book if they've lost faith, if they felt like their faith has been, damaged, or they feel that it needs some sort of re-energizing, or seeking something in their life. I feel like this book could also do that for them too. Um, I hope it's helped some people continue to fight their own battles, whatever they are.
that's great because you're not selfish and you want this to never happen to anybody again. I've
Yeah.
known a few Marthas in my life. Martha Washington, of course, from school, the first lady of our country, George's wife. For you
Yes.
liberals listening, Martha Pascan, my Sunday school teacher back home. Martha Atkinson, pretty much my first crush. Martha Stewart, no bueno. And you. Now, for the second time on this show, and sisters Martha and Mary and Bethany were close friends of Jesus. So let me ask you, in the
Yes.
story, Martha was the warrior that was too preoccupied with worldly tasks, setting up and being the hostess, and upset with her sister Mary that spent every second she could with Jesus. Same Mary that poured out the expensive perfume on his feet, Judas was upset with. Do you feel more like Martha these days, sweating the small stuff, or Mary sitting at Jesus's feet, seeking intimacy with God?
I'm telling you, I do not sweat. I have not sweat the small stuff in a very, 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 very long time. Long before this happened to us, I had a very good grasp on what was important in my life, and I'm grateful for that. First of all, I do feel that serving God and is the most important part of my life. But in serving, it's the tasks you've been given, which are challenges. I feel, I think the worrier, I was always, the thing about Martha, and I'm named after my grandmother, Martha was always the one entertaining everybody, in the Bible. She was the one who was always like the cooking, and that was totally me. And I'm always still that person, but I don't stress about it. It's more of a celebration. So it's interesting about you talk about Martha and the feet, how important that washing of the feet, and you've seen popes have done that, in the poor, and there's I've said to Mike, a couple of times he has a major foot problem, and how the pain that he's felt from some of his ailments from on the job. He was hurt severely on the NYPD. He has a lot of ailments. He has a lot of pain, physical pain in his life. So I pray for that too, so that could be lifted, because so many people suffer because of that. Like their physical issues cause depression. They lose their faith. How could this happen to me? And I think Mary's the simplistic thing of just washing, and the simplicity of the love and the touch of the human, connection. We've lost so much of that in this world right now. And so with my kids, just giving them a hug, or giving them, something as simple as when they were little, combing their hair, putting braids in my daughter's hair, I would appreciate every second of it because I knew that was what it was really about. And I may not be able to do that my entire life. I have friends that are not well, and have suffered. And they can't do those things anymore. So I remember that, being very young, kind of, even in my marriage, appreciating what a great human being chose me to be his wife. And he's still that man, 32 years later.
Yeah.
So,
well, we're praying for him to get out of there.
thank you.
What's next for you? Any family events coming up or another book?
I think my husband should write the next book. I think he has experienced something that thankfully very few people ever have to. And he's writing like crazy. He's writing everything down to remember kind of what he's been going through. It helps him. It's very therapeutic for him. And I told him what happened since he's left and the people that I've met. I could write another book. It's fascinating what has happened since he left and who has come into my life that are angels. True angels seem to be out of nowhere. I could write another book about what's going on right now, but I'm kind of saving it for him to come home and talk about it with him one-on-one so he can understand how many people have come forward to help him, and let him tell his story. Because I've been talking a lot for the last 4.5 years and he couldn't talk.
Yeah. I hope when it comes out, you both come on here and tell us.
I said, I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to do it.
Well, dear sweet Martha, thank you for sharing your and Michael's story with us again.
Thank you.
I was happier circumstances, but maybe happily ever after will be the next one. We are at the end here, so tell everyone where they can go find out more about you and your social media.
Thank you.
And buy your book.
Buy the book. In the
interest 2, 3.
of justice.
Christmas is coming.
It's coming. I have yes, you can get the book on all the platforms where you can buy books, purchase books, Amazon and everywhere else. And
did you have a problem finding a publisher, by the way? Did anyone try to shut you down?
No, the publisher was introduced through someone else and they said, we have to tell your story. I wasn't even looking for a book deal at all. I wasn't looking for a publisher. They came to me through a friend so that was amazing because I never would have done it. I'm too busy. But then when they say, oh, we need it by the end of the month, you think, okay, I better start typing. So I did not, Post Hill Press, who's publisher. If you look at the books, they're doing Michael Flynn's book. They're doing so many other, giving a platform for people who can to speak, which is wonderful. So they were wonderful. I can't say enough about working with them, how great they've been. And Martha Byrne 10 on Twitter, X, and Martha Byrne Official on Instagram. And I do a lot of things on Facebook too, Martha Byrne, and you can find me on my professional page. I do a lot of talkbacks and questions. I give away books all the time to kind of thank people for the support. And we feel the love from everybody. So I'm incredibly grateful.
That's fantastic. All right. Well, thanks again for coming on with us. Hang on, everybody. I will be right back.
Sing a song about the heartland, the only place I feel at home. Sing about the way a good man works until the daylight's gone. Sing the rain on the...
Thanks for coming back. It's that time to remind everyone to please subscribe to heartlandjournal.com. That's how we grow and keep getting talented guests like that going through whatever it is they're going through to share with you, and free content. What could be better than that? It's free. Please subscribe. Now, the Heartland Journal News. The Billy Graham smear on Trump just completely collapsed. Franklin Graham called out the misuse of his father's legacy. 10 months later, the truth prevailed. Last year, a group called Evangelicals for Harris tried to use famed preacher Billy Graham to attack Donald Trump. Bad idea. The group, now known as Evangelicals for America, released an ad that spliced together old footage Graham with footage of Trump. The purpose of the ad was to weaponize Graham against Trump, trying to make it appear as if Graham himself was condemning Trump as greedy, proud, and abusive, and violent. The ad ended with Graham declaring, "Keep clear of people like that." The ad exposed Evangelicals for Harris to legal liability. Lawyers for the Billy Graham Evangelical Association reportedly sent the group multiple letters, including a cease and desist notice. The BGEA accused Evangelicals for Harris of unauthorized political use of the BGA's copyrighted video. At the time, Evangelicals for Harris lashed out at the BGA's attempt to tell the truth about Graham and protect his image. The group accused Franklin Graham, the CEO of the BGA, of using the Trump playbook to silence them. 10 months later, Evangelicals for America is singing a completely different tune and admitting wrongdoing. Earlier this month, the group released a statement apologizing for using the footage of Graham. The organization also removed the ad from its platform, a little late. A statement from Evangelicals for America, July 8th. In the lead up to the 2024 presidential election, Evangelicals for America, PAC's Evangelicals for Harris campaign produced several ads using clips of Reverend Billy Graham. We did this believing that our use of the clips of Reverend Graham, although not done with the prior permission of the Billy Graham Evangelical Association, would meet the criteria for fair use under the U.S. Copyright Act. BGEA wrote to us, concerned that we were infringing its copyright in the video clips of Reverend Graham by using them for political purposes without authorization. Our intent was not to infringe on BGEA's copyright, or to give the impression that Reverend Graham would have taken a side in publicly supporting one political candidate over another in an election, so we apologized to BGEA. We have continued dialogue with BGA since the election, and we affirm its position that Reverend Graham's purpose was always clear, telling people about God's Son, Jesus Christ, who alone came from heaven to earth to make a way for all mankind to be saved from our sins. He never politicized the gospel of Jesus Christ or the work he created through BGA. Reverend Graham aimed to win a hearing for the gospel with all people, whether they were Americans who identified as Democrats, Republicans, or something else, or simply people from another country who had no context for American politics. We also appreciate the spirit in which BGA has approached this matter, inspired by Romans 12:18. And we affirm its intellectual property rights, including copyright in these videos, and its missional interest in protecting Reverend Graham's legacy. Accordingly, we have taken down and will not repost our ads that incorporate video clips of Reverend Billy Graham. The Evangelical for America and its directors have committed not to use content intellectual advocacy as to which BGA claims copyright or other legal interests in the future without clear written permission. How nice after the fact. For those liberals maybe still listening, Romans 12:18 states, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Our hope is that these actions and our commitment to not to use the Reverend Billy Graham within a partisan electoral context will clarify confusion over the message in our original ads, affirm the value and importance of Christian dialogue about the way we engage in politics, and prioritize Christians remaining in communion despite differences. While it's not clear if voters were swayed by the ad, it did accumulate 30 million views before being removed, according to the Religion News Service. For Franklin Graham, the issue was not one he could ignore. Not only was Evangelicals for Harris potentially running afoul of copyright laws, but Franklin believed the group was weaponizing his father to mislead voters. The liberals are using anything and everything they can to promote candidate Harris. They even developed a political ad trying to use my father at Billy Graham's image. They are trying to mislead people, Franklin said last year. Maybe they don't know that my father appreciated the conservative values and policies of President Trump in 2016, and if he were alive today, my father's views and opinions would not have changed. The BGEA said the apology from Evangelicals for America speaks for itself. We are grateful for the outcome, the BGEA told the Religious News Service. Trump calls for Kamala Harris, celebrities who endorsed her, like Oprah, Beyonce, to be prosecuted. President Donald Trump is calling for former Vice President Kamala Harris and the celebrities who endorsed her presidential candidacy to be prosecuted. Trump claims the Democratic Party funneled millions of dollars to high-profile figures so that they'd support Harris in the last election cycle. He took to his favorite social media app, Truth Social, from Scotland to allege Beyonce, Oprah, and Al Sharpton all received millions illegally for their support. The president in May called for a major investigation into Harris for celebrities' endorsements and performances. Both Beyonce's and Oprah's production companies were paid for producing events for the Harris campaign. Oprah Winfrey, her company Harpo Productions, received $1 million from the Harris campaign for event production related to a campaign event in September 2024. Winfrey has stated that she did not take any personal fees and the payment covered production costs. Beyonce, her production company, Parkwood Production Media LLC, was paid $165,000 for production costs related to an event in Houston where she endorsed Harris. Beyonce's mother, Tina Knowles, said that the claim Beyonce was paid for her endorsement is a lie. Bruce Springsteen, his production company, Thrill Hill Productions, Inc., received approximately $75,000 for travel and event production after he performed at a Harris campaign rally in Georgia. Sucker, that's like a half. Lady Gaga, her business, Mermaid Touring, was paid $132,000. See, why did she get more than Bruce? Gracie Abrams, her business, August 8th, Inc., was paid $132,335, about $400 less than Lady Gaga. That is Stacey Abrams, by the way. Her real name is Gracie. Khalid, his business, TGK Touring, was paid $98,000. Another guy who has a bad agent. I did find this funny. In the article, CNN said they found no evidence of such assertions. Well, I just listed 6 with a simple Google search. Hey, folks at CNN, that's called a clue. Here's another. The Black Church wants Al Sharpton nixed from MSNBC over $500,000 donation from Kamala Harris campaign. Following the bombshell reporting, journalistic advocates have also spoken out after finding his nonprofit received a $500,000 donation from Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign. By representing 50,000 churches and more than 27 million members throughout the United States, the National Black Church Initiative claims to be very concerned that one of our leaders appears to be selling our voting to Kamala Harris's campaign and want the network to do something about it. This type of action puts a moral stain on the integrity of the Black Church, the coalition said in a statement posted on Facebook on December 3rd. I agree. That's it for this episode. Thank you, Martha Byrne. God bless you and Michael McMahon for standing tall and keeping the faith and fighting the good fight. We don't always win, but hopefully can be an inspiration to others, like the reviewers of your book and folks that grew up watching your strength and character on TV and seeing now you really were that strong of a person, not just some script reading tough guy like a lot of them, Robert De Niro, for example. This is goodbye for now. I'm your host, Steve Abramowitz, editor-in-chief of HeartlandJournal.com. See you all next time. I cannot wait. Peace in our time and definitely glory to God. Stick around for Tom Waits' beautiful song. What else? Martha.
Lily, thank God.
Holden found Lily.
Did you call the police?
No, I didn't have a chance.
Too bad, because Hans has found them both.
You're nothing but a cowardly piece of filth. What I am is in control.
Now what in the world will they do? As the world turns.
Team of All My Children. The writing team of As the World Turns. The writing team of Passions. The writing team of The Young and the Restless.
And the Emmy goes to As the World Turns.
This is As the World Turns' first ever win for writing. There are 17 talented writers in this writing team. Accepting for the writing team of As the World Turns is head writer Hogan Sheffer.
I've been ready since the day I met Holden. Who are you?
Name's Holden Snyder.
What are you doing here?
Work here. Miss Walsh's new stable master.
You're a lucky man.
I know.
You take good care of my granddaughter.
I will, Cal.
Because there's not another granddaughter.
Who gives this woman to be married?
I do.
Holden.
I, Holden, take you, Lily, to be my wife. To have and to hold from this day forward. For better, for worse. Richer, for poorer. In sickness and in health. To love and to cherish. Forsaking all others. Till death do us part. This is my solemn vow.
Operator, number please. It's been so many years. She remembered my old voice while I
Any views or opinions represented on the podcast are personal and belong solely to the creator and do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations that the creator may or may not be associated with in a professional or personal capacity unless explicitly stated.
From the heart.